All right. So what is your idea?
Take your album Lonelyland and just very simply talk about each song. Just boom, 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 boom. Go through each one. You just sort of give
Let's
some
do
back.
it.
You're listening to the Lone Star Plate podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong.
This is part 2 of our track-by-track discussion of Lonelyland with Bob Schneider. We discussed tracks 8 through 14. For part 1, check the link in the description. Let's begin. Track 8, Madeline. Look, let's go to this next one, which coincidentally on this wiki page is the only one that has your name and someone else's name with it. I'm assuming that's co-songwriting, so I'm curious to hear the story on this, which is track number 8, Madeline. Or is it Madeline or Madeline?
It's Madeline, or Madeline.
And it says Schneider and David Boyle.
Oh, really?
That's what it has in parentheses.
That could, yeah, who knows? I don't know why he's on the track as a co-writer, but it could have been a deal.
He's listening right now like, what the, Bob, you should know why. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it could have been a deal where he was in the room when I wrote it. Like, there is some of that, like when you're writing something and somebody's there in the room with you while you're writing it, you got to give them a co-write.
Really?
Yeah. If the drummer's in there playing drums while you're writing a song, he gets a co-write. That happened a lot in Ugly Americans and Scabs.
Wow.
That's why you want to write the song on your own. You don't want to bring it into practice and write it.
That's
or you don't want to jam and practice and then write the song. And then all of a sudden it's like a 5-way split. Again, sure. I've never made money on records that way. So it's kind of a non-issue.
Sure.
You know, it's not like I've ever made money on Madeline. I never got a sync for it. So, wow. Yeah. So I'm sure that's probably what happened. Like he didn't write the lyrics. Maybe he was there helping write some of those chord progressions or something. I don't know. But the chord progression is it's the same thing throughout the whole song. So I doubt he even wrote that. I think he was just there. I think he was there jamming when I. Maybe he was jamming with me when I wrote it.
He's just like bobbing his head to it. He's like, he's like co-writer. It's actually, well, not with the Texas edition additional tracks, but aside from that, just the original release, it is the longest song that you have.
It's a long song.
Yeah.
It's a long song. There's a long intro. There's a long extended solo. There's a long outro. Probably the song that I played the least on the record. I kind of stopped playing it after a few years after the record came out and then really never played it much after that. It's probably the least played song on the whole record in terms of.
Wow. I have a friend that named their daughter after this song.
Oh, wow. I have had a few people request it. Like if I do a private show, I'm always like, give me a list of the songs you want to hear. So I make sure that I play the songs you want to hear, because you're paying me a lot of money to play.
Yeah.
And I have had that requested a couple times, Madeline. And I'm like,
sure.
Hey, learn this song. They're like, oh, no problem, because it's 4 chords that repeat the entire time. They never change.
And you're like, and let's make it the longest song.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
I mean, I love the way that song sounds. Like it really kind of showcases David Boyle, the keyboard player. Like he really did a lot of cool things on that track. Maybe because he was a co-writer.
Maybe that's how he got the co-writer. Yeah.
I don't think that's the reason he got the co-writing thing, but it might be why he put so much effort into it. I don't know, but
it is Wikipedia. He could have gone in and like edited it, been like, I put my name on this. I don't know how that works.
I don't know either.
I've never edited Wiki.
I don't think I've ever paid him a dime for. I don't think I've ever gotten paid a dime for that song. So
well, there you go. Fair enough. Then he shouldn't be asking for a dime. I don't know. I don't want to move on to the next one without you giving your blessing here.
No, we can move on for sure.
Tokyo, track number 9.
All right. I remember writing this song because I remember exactly where I was. I used to drive this 71 VW Bug, and the gas gauge was broken on it. So I never know how much gas I had, and I was always pretty poor back then. And so I'd only put like $1 or $2 of gas in it and then try to drive it as far as I could. And I was always running out of gas, like always. And I don't know if I was out of gas or whatever, but I was, for some reason, I had to take a bus in Austin in the middle of summer. And I think it was because I ran out of gas, and now I'm like at this bus stop. And, you know, if you've ever taken a bus in Austin, it sucks. It's like, it's where people have no other option.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't want to take a bus. It's the public transportation in Austin is the worst.
I agree.
So I'm sitting at this bus stop. It's in the middle of summer, so it's 100 degrees. I just was feeling so shitty. And I had this notebook, and I just started writing the words for Tokyo. I like just wrote them all out as fast as I could write them out in this notebook. And then when I got home, picked up a guitar and just recorded the song. Like, it just came out in this. I was just feeling. I can still remember the feel, you know, who knows how I was actually feeling, but I just remember, you know, like that feeling of like defeat. Like did you play sports when you were a kid?
Yeah, I played hockey.
Yeah, you played hockey. That feeling when you fucking gave it your all, but you fucking got beat, and you're fucking sore, and you're dirty, and you're stinky and sweaty, and it was all for nothing. Like, all of that work was for nothing. You're just a miserable, terrible fucking piece of shit failure. Dude, that's how I was feeling when I wrote that song.
Let me just say I was really good at hockey, though. But yes, I know the feeling. I guess after a loss, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's where that song comes from. So
wow. And written on the bus, did it ever change? Like that first initial
it might have
threw down on the paper?
I don't think so. Lots of times when you write a song, like when it just comes out in one shot like that, you don't ever change anything. And the lyrics are like super quirky. It's not like, there's tons of quirky shit on there.
Sure.
Somewhere I've got the original lyrics for it. And that's where you really find out, how much of this came out uninterrupted and how much of it got written and then crossed out. It's kind of weird, because I went to a computer to write lyrics at least 10 years ago, maybe longer. And so now I don't have those notebooks. Before that, I have, this many notebooks. They're just filled with lyrics. So you can see where I was writing it. And then I'm like
a notebook, Bob, of like your old stuff, like put together of old, dude, people would eat that shit up. Oh my God, that would be cool.
I could probably sell about 48 of those. I'm sure there's like 48 sales waiting to happen on that book.
No way, man. Are you
maybe
kidding
49
me?
If you maybe 40, 49 if somebody's buying it for their mom. But probably not, because their mom's 100% dead, unless she's 105. Unless she broke the fucking limit to how old you can live as a human being. For sure, the mom's dead.
Oh,
so maybe their great granddaughter.
Oh man.
Anyways, yeah. So that's Tokyo.
That's Tokyo. I love it. Wow. Okay, next song, number 10, Under My Skin.
Under My Skin just comes out of this again. It's that same chord, and I picked up a guitar and I just started. I just started playing that, and I was like, "Oh, that's definitely something." So it's one of those things where I like played it, and then finally I like grabbed my phone, called my answering machine, played that into the answering machine so I wouldn't forget it.
Wow, that's cool.
And then when I got home, I just wrote the lyrics. Or I might have even, at that point, I was writing so many lyrics all the time. I was just filling up notebooks with lyrics back then. So I always had a ton of lyrics kind of ready to go.
Sure.
And that might have been some lyrics I already had, or I might have written some for that riff. But
that's cool. That is
yeah.
cool. Wow. Love
that. It was definitely one of those where I've had that where I'll go into a guitar place or a music store and I'll pick up an instrument and I'll start playing, and then all of a sudden I'm writing something. Usually I buy the instrument. Like I have 15 different weird, fucked up, shitty stringed instruments that I picked up and started playing. And I was like, oh, this is a song. Maybe there's more song. And I think of like the guitars, like, oh, there's songs in this guitar. I gotta grab it.
Wow.
Get all the songs out of it so that somebody else doesn't come in and grab all these songs that are in this guitar.
Dude. What a great concept. I'm trying to wrap my mind around that. I could see that as like an animated film. The songs are trapped inside there and you're getting them. That's interesting. Wow, that's I'm going to be thinking about that. I know people listening to this too are going to be thinking about that. That's really cool. All right, let's see, number 11. So that was Under My Skin. This is track number 11, Blue Skies for Everyone.
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't really have a story for Blue Skies for Everyone. It is one of those weird songs that I have a few songs where I really, truly don't know how I came up with. There's a song called Blood that I've got. I'm like, how did I write that song? It's got all these weird chords. I don't know how to play. It's not like I don't know shit about guitar, dude. I know how to play A, B. I don't even know how to play B. I know how to play an A chord, a D chord, a G chord, an E chord, A minor. I know the rudimentary chords. And, fucking Blue Skies for Everyone's got this, it's got this.
Like a E to C sort of thing going.
It's E to C to B seventh, but it's really
Yeah.
And now I was listening to, I will say this, my favorite songwriter maybe ever, my favorite recording artist of all time is Tom Waits. And in the mid 80s, for sure in the mid 80s, that's all I was listening to was Tom Waits. His 3 albums, Swordfish Trombones, Rain Dogs, and Frank's Wild Years. I listened to those. I knew every word of every song on those 3 records. And so I have wanted to write a bunch of songs. I've written a lot of songs that kind of borrow from that. And this song definitely has a Tom Waits vibe to it. Now, of course, I never try to sing like Tom Waits because that would be dumb. Because then people would be like, oh, that's just Tom Waits. So I don't sing like him, but I definitely borrow the vibe. And that one for sure borrows from his vibe, from the Tom Waits vibe. So that was me like, oh, this is me writing kind of a Tom Waits song.
Yeah, just inspired.
And I like I do like how the song is about somebody having a hard time, like a really hard time. And then, but at the end of it, they're like, but hey, even though everything's terrible, even though everything's terrible, it might not always be terrible. And I'm hoping that it won't be terrible for you for too much longer, and that there will be blue skies. In fact, there are going to be blue skies, not just for you, but for everybody.
Yeah.
There's always blue skies up ahead, no matter what's going on. So I like that sort of innocent hopefulness. There's a really innocent, sweet beauty. The other thing I was doing back then during that time was I read all the Kurt Vonnegut books, and I feel like Kurt Vonnegut books have that sort of hopeful innocence. They're also very pessimistic. They're also like, well, we're all doomed. But he always has these people that are hoping for the best. And he's also very funny and he's hopeful and funny, and also at the same time kind of like, well, it's probably going to not end well. But you never know. You never know. Anyways, I don't know what any of that has to do with it, but I do like the tie to Tom Waits for sure, and then also the sentiment of that song is really nice.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I love that song, to be honest with you. I love them all. It's one of few albums that I can say, that every song is great. It's just one of those things you just let play through. And I'm a recent fan of the Lonelyland album because I just listened to a lot of your newer stuff off the bat until everyone was like, no, you got to go back. You got to go back. You got to listen to Lonelyland. And yeah, once you do, it's like once you go black, you never go back. It's like once you go lonely, you never go not lonely. I don't know.
I do think like if you just listen to Lonelyland itself as a thing, there's something very special about it. So the other thing about Lonelyland is, so we get done recording the record, and I didn't have a record. I wasn't signed to a record company. I didn't do it under the supervision of a record company. And the whole idea was like, up until that point, I'd done some records with record companies with the Ugly Americans. This is the first time I'd ever done anything under my name. At first it was going to be Lonelyland, and then at some point I decided I'm not going to call it Lonelyland. It was going to be like Wilco, like Wilco calls itself Wilco, even though it's pretty much Jeff Tweedy, but is a band. I was like, I don't want people getting confused and thinking that I don't want the people in the band getting confused that this is a band.
Sure. That's interesting.
I just want everybody to know this is me. This is my vision. I'll call the record Lonelyland, but it's going to be a Bob Schneider record.
Sure.
In hindsight, I should have called it Lonelyland. It should have been a band. But here's the thing. At that point, too, I didn't know how to run like the idea of calling the shots. It was all very new to me. And I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. But that's beside the point. We get done recording the record. It's called Bob Schneider Lonelyland. I don't have a record company, so I just go to contact a CD manufacturing place, get 1,000 CDs printed up, and take a box of 200 of them down to Waterloo. Waterloo Records.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I made this record. They'd already been selling this song sung and played on guitar at the same time, which is the solo record that I'd recorded where I'm just playing guitar. And that one had been selling pretty good. So they knew me. I'm like, hey, I've got this new record. It's called Lonelyland. And I remember telling the owner of Waterloo, I'm like, I think I'm pretty happy with this record. Like, I think it's going to do pretty well. It ended up becoming the #1 selling record in the history of Waterloo. They've never sold more records than Lonelyland. That includes like Dark Side of the Moon. That includes Adele.
Wow.
Now, the reason that is because I only sold it in Waterloo. I didn't sell it at any other record stores. So you could either buy it at my show or buy it at Waterloo. So, and at that time, everybody read the Chronicle, and Waterloo had a top 10 list, and it was the top 10 Texas artists. And so I went in there with the Lonelyland record, and it immediately started selling. and I went to number one, and I was number one on that list for 3 years.
Holy shit.
Like, it's just like Willie Nelson would come out with a record and I'd go to number 2. The next week I'd be at number 1. I was just always at number 1 with the records.
Crazy.
So because of that, it started showing up on this weird independent record store chart. And now I'm just living, in my little house. I get a call one day, answer the phone. It's Monty Littman, the head of Universal Records. It's like, hey, this is Monty Littman. I'm the president of a record company called Universal Records. I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? He goes, what's going on with this Lonelyland record? I'm like, well, recorded it a while back. I've been selling it out of Waterloo Records. He's like, well, if there's anything we can do for you, let me know. This is my number. Okay, nice talking to you. Great, bye. Hang up. Get a call about a month later. It's Monty again. How's everything going? Great. Things are good. How's the record? Great. Everything's fine. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. No problem. I will. Hang up. I'm not calling them back. What am I going to call? What am I going to call the fucking president of Universal Records? I can't even fucking ask a girl out if I'm at a club. If I'm at a club and I see a girl, I'm not even going to go up and say hi to her. I'm going to call the fucking president of a goddamn biggest record company in the world? Of course not. Jesus Christ, I have no confidence. So sure enough, a couple weeks go by. Monty Littman again. Hey, dude, quit fucking stalking me, bitch. And he's like, hey, man, I've been listening to this song, Metal and Steel. And they were, that's the other thing too. They were playing it on KGSR a lot. They were playing Metal and Steel a lot on KGSR. And that was KGSR? Also, KGSR was the local radio station. It's Austin City Limits Radio now.
Oh, got it.
But at the time, in the early 2000s, late 90s, that was the big station, AAA station is what they called it. And they played mostly like easy listening adult music, but they played a lot of Texas music on there as well. And they were playing, like, literally, they were playing Metal and Steel every hour. You'd hear it. If you're listening to that radio station once an hour, they played it. And that was driving the sales at Waterloo. And he's like, man, I've been listening to Metal and Steel. I think we can do something. You want to come to, I guess it was New York, to have a meeting? I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, anyways, I got a lawyer. We go have the meeting. They want to put out Lonelyland. We sign a contract. Then the head of A&R is like, we want you to re-record the record. And I'm like, well, I like the record. Why don't you come down? We'll have a listening party. So this guy comes down. We go into my studio. We listen to the record. Me, the A&R guy. I think it's just me and the A&R guy. Maybe my lawyer was there too. And listening, and the reason I brought this whole story up is because you were saying you like listening to the whole record, like you like the whole thing.
Exactly.
And when we sat down in the studio and listened to it, we listened to it from beginning to end. We put it on and listened to the whole thing. When you listen to the whole thing, it's kind of its own world.
Yeah.
It really works. You kind of get lost in the sound of it.
Yeah.
You get used to the sound of it. And then it's its own thing. And after we were done, the guy was like, sure, this sounds great. We'll put it out as is. Now, I shouldn't have done that. I should have re-recorded it. Because the problem with the record is when you listen to just a track of it and you put it next to another track that's on the radio, or, it just doesn't sound that great. It sounds fine in and of itself. But when compared to other stuff, it's a little thin. It's a little, you know what I mean? It has its own sound. And it's not quite, it just wasn't quite.
That's interesting.
It sounded fine on the radio, especially Metal and Steel, which I think maybe was remixed for the radio. But would have sounded better, I think, had we gone in and, re-recorded. But I just didn't, I refused to do it. And so.
You would have had two different versions of the album.
There would have been a newer version of it. and then the old version would have got retired.
Man, I
But
don't know about that. That's a tough.
I don't know either. And again, I argued against it.
Yeah. I'm
And
glad you
so
did.
that's what's
I get your point though, from your
that's what's out there.
perspective. Yeah, I get from your perspective, but as a fan, I just love the way it sounds. Even just one track of it, because that's how I listened to it originally. I mean, I just put on one
Yeah.
song. Okay, that's cool. Then this and then I was like, nope, let's start at the beginning and take it all in. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's like your own battle, Bob, that you're always gonna have. You know, your own personal. Bob's fan Facebook group and how you can join with founder Mundy. Mundy, I want to talk about the Facebook group here. You know, I don't want to take up too much more of y'all's time, so I want to make sure that we shout that out, and I really just let you talk about it, like why you got it started, how it's going, you know, what your favorite part is about it, and if people want to join, what can they expect?
Fans of Bob Schneider on Facebook is the OG one that I started back in 2016. Facebook changed all their algorithms, and then they want to market things to people who have pages and try to get you to pay for ads and all. Like, that's not what this is. This is not a business. This is a community, you know. So we kind of just waited that out for a little while, and then they started doing the group pages. So that's how the family started, and now that's awesome because that page gets a lot more action. Everybody can do their own posts and interact a lot more. It's way cooler than the original thing was in the first place, so that's great. And thank goodness, because this year I started working full time and I don't really have time to hop in there as often as I used to. So everybody's on there. It's a 24-hour Bob party.
Track number 12. Better.
So yeah, I don't really know much about Better in terms of having written it. I do know that Carl Thiel's girlfriend at the time sings on it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we record the song, and then after it was recorded, he was like, "Oh, I think my girlfriend would sound really good singing like this sort of refrain, better, better." So you hear her on there. And I don't know if that's something that was in the original version or it's something that he came up with, but that's her on there. And I can't think of her name, which really bums me out, but I can't think of anybody's name anymore. So please if you're listening, don't hate me. I know your name somewhere. I just can't retrieve it now with my brain. But yeah, that was the thing that made that song sort of special, was her appearance on it, because it really comes out of blue. There's no,
or were you at first like your girlfriend? Like,
no, I thought it sounded great. I mean, it was, yeah, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's kind of at the end. It's probably, again, it's the song, you know, that and Madeline are the songs that I just don't ever play. I play Better more than I play Madeline, but I don't play that one very much either. But I mean, I used to play a lot in the early 2000s, but that was 20 years ago.
Sure.
I haven't played it much since then.
Look, it totally makes sense. You've written how many songs? Again, you know, it's like you can only play so many songs in one set, right? Like, it's such a small slice, like percentage of your whole catalog. That does have to be quite, frustrating.
It's about
pick, right?
Yeah, it's about 18 songs in a set. So
yeah,
you've got 18 songs. Probably 4 or 5 of those I play every time. Tarantula, 40 Dogs, Big Blue Sea.
Yeah,
I kind of play those every time. And so that leaves you the other, maybe 13 songs to choose from. A lot of those are newer songs.
Sure.
But then also, like Honey Pot, Let the Light In, songs that are
There were the
kind of the single songs on the
what do you records. Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, do you like Let the Light In?
I do. I love that song. I love
that song, Bob. That's the first song I ever heard of you. Like that's how I was introduced to you, was that song.
So that song's got an interesting story. I was dating this girl, or was getting to know her. Oh, I hadn't even started dating her. This beautiful actress that I'd met out in California. And then we were like FaceTiming each other.
Yeah.
And talking on the phone, like starting to having a bit of a romance, but we hadn't like hooked up or anything. And she told me that she had been in this breakup like a year before, and she just couldn't get over, like she was just having a hard time getting over it. And that's totally where that song, and then I wrote that song that week.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, I wrote this song, check it out. It's like pretty much came right out of the conversation that we had.
Wow.
And then we ended up getting together. And this girl was so,
hey, write a song
so
for
hot.
her, girl. Yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Again,
yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
Yes, I love how it started. Anyway, I don't want to, and the video's great too, by the way. That's how I took it all in, was the video and the song all at once. Great. Okay. Better, right? We better. Okay, track number 13. We got 2 more tracks left. So track number 13. This is 2002. So you're looking into the future for this song.
The year's 2002. Doing exactly what I wanted to.
2002, I wrote in 98. And I was dating this girl, but I hadn't been dating her for very long. We were just kind of hooking up a little bit, but she was extremely, really beautiful and very kind of innocent. But she tells me this story. I meet her, and she tells me this story about how she was working at a steak restaurant here in Austin. And I'm just not going to tell. It's no point in telling who the actor was. But she waits on this actor, and he is like, "Hey, will you meet me at my hotel after you get off work?" And she's wow. Beautiful. Sure. And this actor is not that good looking, by the way. Wow. He's not like. I mean, he's famous.
Yeah,
but not that good looking. So she gets his number, like to the hotel room number, and then goes over there after she gets off work, and then kind of becomes his sex slave for 2 months, the 2 months that he's in town working on this film, maybe 6 weeks. She's over there every day. He's like, I want you to, I'm going to be home at 5:30 p.m. I want you wearing an apron and no other clothes, and I want you to be on all fours, and I'm going to come in and have sex with you when I get there. Like, I'll just,
Jesus.
Yeah. Just telling me all this stuff. And I'm like a young guy. I'm like 30 years old at the time. I've never experienced any of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's all just blowing my mind. It's like 50 Shades of Gray. And I'm like, literally, I've got 2 shades. I've got black and white, no shades of gray at all in my fucking notebook. And I'm just like listening to this shit going, holy fuck, dude. This shit is insane. And she's hot, dude. She's so hot. So she tells me about all this weird kind of not S&M, but submissive, like where the one guy's like dominant and she's submissive. And he's just telling her what to do, and she's doing it. And then I guess at the end of the 6 weeks, he's like, hey, I want you to come live with me in California or whatever. Yeah. And then leaves town, changes his number, and she never hears from him again. Just ghosts her completely.
Wow. Yeah, he's done that before. Let's be real.
For sure.
Whoever
Probably
this person is.
Yeah, I don't want. Again, he's still around. You would know
I don't
who he
want
is.
any trouble.
No,
I don't. I don't even like to know this stuff. To be honest,
I'm not gonna. Yeah, there's no point. It doesn't change the story knowing who he is.
Sure.
Anyway, so she tells me all this, and then so now I'm like, holy shit! How do I even compete with this? I'm like,
how do I compete?
Like, I'm like, take off your blouse. I don't know shit, dude. know anything. So now I'm like going to fucking. Now I'm going to the fucking book people and like buying the story of O and buying these like sex books to try to
up
figure.
with the apron on all fours. Like, is it maybe reverse? We reverse.
No, there's
this?
no, dude. There's no reverse. You gotta. I'm like trying to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and failing. By the way, failing terribly. I'm reading all this stuff and like, and it's all very alluring. I'm start reading Marquis de Sade, Anne Rice's porn books, the Sleeping Beauty series. I'm reading all kinds of crazy shit, dude. And don't know what the fuck to do. Anyways, she eventually meets some other guy and tells me she's can't see me anymore because she's gonna see this other guy. And I'm telling you, dude, I was heartbroken.
Wow.
And at the time I'm on tour with Ugly Americans. I'm doing Scabs in Austin, but then also going on the road with Ugly Americans. At that point, Scabs and Ugly Americans were kind of the same band. And so I'm in Denver, Colorado at this Ramada Inn. And those days I would bring like my recording studio, which was like a Tascam 4-track, like tape recording machine and a keyboard, a mic, a guitar. And so I sat in this room and wrote. And the idea was like, I'm telling you, dude, I was heartbroken. Like I was in love with this girl. And I'm like, man, in 4 years, I'll be fine. Like in 4 years, I won't even think about this chick anymore. And so that's where it came from. It's like the year's 2002. Wow. And I'm right. It's one of those songs again, where I'm just writing it down as fast as I can write it down, record it all in one night. The window's open. The original demo, if you go to my song club, my Patreon song club, you can get the original demo on the song club. You hear like the sirens, because this was like a part of Denver where there was a lot of police action, drugs and stuff. You can hear the siren outside. I'm just recording it live as like I'm writing it and then recording a verse, recording another verse, just as soon wrote it all in one night.
Wow.
Great song. One of my, again, another one of my favorite songs ever. And then of course, 2002 comes and goes. And now people think it's like some autobiographical song, but I wrote it 4 years before 2002. And, but I love that song. I love the way it turned out. And I ran into this chick. She moved to another state and I'm on tour and she contacted me or something. She's like, hey, I'm going to be at your show. And now I'm like married now. I've got a kid. I'm like, I'm over this bitch. Right? I'm fucking on tour.
Yeah.
It's going to be packed. And there's a big crowd. I fucking play my show. I'm ready to show her pictures of my kid and my wife. And I'm at the merch thing afterwards. And I tap on my shoulder and I turn around and it's her and she's holding her own baby. And she's there with this guy, the guy that she dumped me for, she marries, has a kid with. And she's like, gin rummy fuck face. No, she doesn't say that, but that's what it felt like, dude. She was like, checkmate, you fucking piece of shit. And I was just like, all of my confidence and all of my like, oh, I've got a kid. Here's my kid. Here's my wife. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. I was just like, oh shit, I'm still pining over this shit. Because here's what happens. And this happens this is what I've realized about love. By the way, it's just a trick. It's a trick that your brain's playing on you to get us to procreate and take care of these, to have kids and then to raise them till they're old enough to fend for themselves, which is about 3 or 4. And what happens is you get this idea, you meet somebody and they remind you somehow of your love that you felt from your mom and dad when you were 2 or 3. and it rings a bell, and you're like, this is love. This is how I stay safe. This is how I am fed. This is how I'm clothed. And it's like it solders into that part of your brain, that wiring. And if you get out of that relationship really early on, like within the first 2 months, and it doesn't play out, then that connection, that hard wiring is just there forever. So you've had relationships in your life that lasted less than 2 months, where you fell in love with somebody. And even to this day, when you think about it, you're like, oh, that was the one. That was my true, like, that's the pure, true love thing that you can't ever get over. Because had you stayed in that relationship for another 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years, all that shit would have played out, and you'd have been like, oh yeah, this is not the thing that's going to make me happy and safe and feel loved. It's only those ones that end early like that.
Yeah. That's
so
interesting. Wow.
So anyway, so that's where all that came from. 2002. Again, I love that song, and still play it to this day, and it works fine as sort of a pseudo make-believe autobiography kind of thing.
What an absolutely amazing story, to be honest. Wow. That is I'm gonna be thinking about that one, Bob. Okay. I don't know how you top it on this next one. Well, maybe you can here. Last track, Oklahoma. Second longest song on the album.
I got a good story, bro. I got a good one.
She came from Oklahoma. Said the end of the world was on its way. Shipping over.
But back in my drinking days, I'm out one night and I run into, I'm at this friend of mine's house, and I run into Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers, and he's a famous junkie. And I'd never done heroin, still, I just wasn't a hard drug, never done anything, never put a needle in my arm or anything like that. And I run into him one night at this guy's house, and I'm 5-6 o'clock in the morning, we're both pretty wasted, and he's like, oh, have you ever done heroin? And I'm like, never done it. And he's like, well, here's some. And he puts out a rail of heroin. And so I snort this heroin, and I can't tell any difference between that and how drunk I was. And I mean, because I was already drunk. So that party ends shortly thereafter, like I'm home within an hour after that. Pass out, go to sleep, wake up the next day, maybe at noon, get up, and still have this in my system from the night before. And at the time I was living with this guy, Dave Schniz Robinson, the drummer for Scabs. And he has his drum set up, and I've got a guitar and a mic and stuff. And I'm like, hey man, you want to jam? Like we smoke like a doobie or whatever, and start just making up songs, dude. And every song, every idea is great. And I understand finally, like, what heroin does, which is it removes the critic from your brain. Like the part like, oh, this is dumb, or this is stupid, or this isn't cool. That's gone, dude, completely. And any idea you have is great. It's like your brain just saying, oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. This is great the whole time.
That could be dangerous though.
I'm just right. No, but that's where you get Nirvana. Like all those songs that Nirvana did. Smells Like Teen Spirit. You don't have Smells Like Teen Spirit if you don't have him strung out on heroin. You don't have Tom Waits, Rain Dogs, and Swordfish Trombones and Frank's Wild Years if he's not doing heroin. You don't have all this great music You don't have Abbey Road. You don't have Come Together. You don't have any of those songs that John Lennon wrote on that record if you don't have heroin.
Wow. And
now that's the only time I've ever done it. And if the cops are listening, might not have been heroin. Could have been anything. Who knows? Anyways, I'm writing like literally everything I'm coming up with is like, this is great. This is great. This is great. And then I'm like, I start singing this. They came from Oklahoma. Said the end of the world was on its way in a Chevy Nova. They came from Oklahoma. Which is, I don't know why I was saying Oklahoma, because Schniz is from Oklahoma. But I kept saying Oklahoma. And so I was writing that riff, and then that kind of stuck. And I guess I wrote it down, and I guess maybe I recorded a little bit of it. I'm not sure. All I know is the next day, wake up. So that day goes. The next day I get up and I start playing these songs that I'd written. They were all good. There were like 5 songs. They were all amazing. I'm like, hey, let's do those songs again. This song sucks. This song sucks. This song sucks. And the only one that didn't suck so bad was the Oklahoma one. And that's the only one that stuck. But it was weird. It really did. I understand now why that drug works and why people like, I don't know if you ever saw that. Did you see the Juice World documentary? He's
Juice
a rapper.
World, no. Oh no.
This guy Juice World, he was a kid, young rapper, and he would just always be on these opiate like
pills.
No, I think just like opium laced drinks. Like he would just have opium syrup.
The purple drink. They call it the purple drink.
And he could just, so he was always just like completely in that world, that opiate land. And he could just sit there and just rap. And they were beautiful, wonderful raps. Now he died, but I get it. Like when you're in that state, nothing's stopping you from accessing your whole brain. Nothing's going, hey, you suck. Everything's like, you're great. You're great. Oh, that's so good. Oh, how clever. That's so clever. That's so cool. So you're just like, I got my in the wheel with the hand and the whatever you're doing. I can't do it because I'm not on opiates right now. But if I was, I'd just like nonstop rap for you. But because I'm not, my brain's like, you suck, dude. You're old. You're white. You can't rap. What the fuck? You suck. So I can't rap. So anyways, that's how that works. That's where that song came from, Oklahoma. And yeah, that was the original Lonelyland record. Now,
wow. When
Universal came and they said they wanted to put it out, they were like, we should do a Texas version, because I'd sold, I don't know, a lot of records just in Texas. They're like, we should add some extra songs. So we added King of the World, which was just a straight demo that I did at home. And then 2 other like instrumental weird tracks or something that went on there.
The World Passes You By and the
World Passes You. Yeah, World Passes You By.
Carrizo.
Yeah, the Grave of Senor Carrizo, which was just like a straight up instrumental thing. And then World Passes You By, which was a demo I did at Music Lane that I had laying around. So we just added that at the end just to kind of do a cash grab with people that had already bought the record.
So you could re-release it, right? Yeah, totally.
Re-release it in Texas. And the thing about that record, and the reason it sold so much, is because people would buy it over and over again as gifts. Like people just, every Christmas, people that had bought Lonelyland were buying 3 or 4 copies and giving it to their friends, because nobody had that record. So if you had friends that were in Michigan or something, you'd buy that record and give it to them. So it sold quite a few records.
Yeah, man. No, I get it. That's how your fan base, I think, works a lot. People are always talking about, oh, I turned this person on to Bob, like converting them like a religion almost. You hear that a lot in your fan groups and stuff.
the cool thing and the uncool, the good and the bad with me is I've always flown like way under the radar, especially outside of Texas. Like when I say Texas, I mean outside of Austin. Outside of Austin, with the exception of being on Austin City Limits once in 2000 and once in 2010, there's been no exposure whatsoever. Now I had on TV, very few syncs and films. I did have a little bit of a hit in 2007 or 2008 with 40 Dogs on AAA radio, which really and ultimately means nothing.
Well, but that movie is great. That movie is a cult classic too. Which movie? Sure helps. The 40 Days.
Oh, no, is 40 Dogs in that, or is Big Blue Sea in that? A Big Blue Sea's in that.
No, 40 Dogs is in that.
In 40 Days, in 40 Nights?
I'm pretty sure the one with Josh Hartnett and he
no, I think that's Big Blue Sea opens that movie. It's Big Blue Sea.
Okay. Well, then what's 40 Dogs? I thought.
I don't think 40 Dogs is on anything.
It's not?
I don't think so.
I mean, you would know. Why would I be arguing with you about this?
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure. So because of that,
my fucking
I've never been I've never been in like Rolling Stone magazine. I've never been in Spin. I was never like on like the David Letterman show. I was on Jay Leno's show once when I was dating Sandra Bullock, but only because I was dating Sandra Bullock, and that was before Lonelyland came out. She's like, my boyfriend's a songwriter. I want him on the show. And so she went on one night and I went on the next night as part of the deal. Like she just brokered that deal. She's like, I want him on the show. So
I gotta find that.
I was on that show, but I wasn't signed or anything. So because of that, nobody's shoved me in people's face. So when people come across what I do, they really do feel like they've discovered something. Like they've discovered this treasure.
Yeah.
And that I'm theirs. Like they own this thing because nobody else knows about it. And there's a real loyalty and a real passion that these people have, which I love, which is great. And I think because of my podcasts and because of the live streams during the pandemic, that's also kind of reinforced that relationship that I have with these fans.
Sure.
So I do have a very passionate, very loyal fan base. They'll come see 20, 30, 100 shows, which is amazing. But I am also constantly changing. If they've been to 30 shows, there were 30 different shows. Those aren't the same shows.
Sure.
But there are people that played the same show for 20 years, same set of songs. I'm not saying who they are. But it's kind of like almost everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of like almost everybody. Except for, at least people that do what I do, which is singer-songwriter. They're kind of doing the same songs. And I'm sure my fans would love nothing more than for me to just come on stage and play mostly Lonelyland with a couple other songs thrown in. They would love that, but that's not what I do. I'm going to be playing the songs I wrote this week, this month, this year. I mean, I'm playing all the songs from my new album now that hasn't been released. Once that album's released, I probably will stop playing those songs. Once people know them and get used to them and they're like, oh, play that song. You're like, sorry,
done.
I'm playing the new ones from the next record. You're going to have to time travel.
Hey, that just means you got to get in on the ground floor, right? And follow you before the albums ever come out or even know about the albums. Do people know that you have this album coming out?
No, yeah. I mean, I may have mentioned it a couple times, but yeah, it's coming out soon. And the other thing too, like, I have this Patreon, the Song Club. If you go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bob Schneider, you can join. And if you're part of that, you get all the the songs I write every month. I'm writing these demos, and I've gotten pretty good at recording these songs. So you get all those songs every month. So if you do want to keep kind of in sync with what I'm doing, that's the best way to do it. And you also get the new record. The Patreon people get the new record at least a month before it's ever released to the public.
Oh, wow.
And that's free.
Amazing.
That's part of that's just being part of Patreon. They just get it.
Plus you do these other creative
things
things that add to your music, right? The people that are fans, right? Your art, your poetry, just your live stream, just like your personality, man. Like, you know, I've always said, maybe not to you, but you could have definitely been a stand-up comedian, like by far. That's what makes your shows also enticing along with the songs, right? It's like, it's just the juice in between that you bring. That came out oddly sexual, and I didn't mean it that way. But you know what I mean? Like there's, yeah, man, you got this graphic novel, and you know, it's like you have these outlets and your fans get to absorb it all, which is great.
I mean, ultimately, my job is to entertain people, you know. That's really what my job is. When I get on stage, you know, like doing this, I forget to be entertaining. So, you know, I'll start telling these stories. They might get a little long-winded or whatever. But when I'm on stage, I'm not forgetting what my job is. When I'm on stage, It's like, make people laugh, make people dance, make people forget about their worries. And because life, dude, it's life, dude. Life is fucking no joke. So when people come see me, my job is to have them forget their cares. Sure. And if that takes saying something audacious, I'll do it. But ultimately, I want people to laugh. I want them to maybe cry. I want them to reminisce. I want them to, you know, feel something, feel some love, feel some, I don't know, again, you know, forget that we're all going to die soon. Basically, that's my job, is to keep people from. That's why, even though I do write some songs about death, like you don't want to do too many songs about death. I realized that a while back.
You're the guy on the Titanic as it's going down, still playing the violin, right? Like, that's funny.
No, dude. Fuck that. I'm fucking got a wig. I got a wig on. I'm in a life raft. Fuck that, dude.
Pushing the kids out of the way. Yeah, hello, it's me.
Fucking shaving my beard with a fucking shard of broken glass. Trying to fucking pass as a woman.
Oh, women and children. That's me.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Dude. I'm a coward. I
could see if you were with Kate Winslet on the thing. You're pushing her off to get on the board.
No, here's what I'm doing, dude. If all that shit started going down on the Titanic, I'm finding a firearm and I'm ending my life. I'm not fucking drowning.
I agree. Drowning sounds horrific.
I'm killing myself. Like, I'm like, where's the fentanyl? Like, there's got to be some fentanyl in this ship.
This podcast is just like amazing.
Dude, you know what's weird about all of it? As fun as it was, and I mean it was fun, dude. Jerry Seinfeld, Russell Crowe, right after he did Gladiator, was, you know, just all these, wow. Dennis Quaid, like all these people were just regulars at Antone's for those Scabs gigs.
Really? Holy shit, man.
Oh yeah, it was like the place to be, like Kid Rock. Like if you were in town on a Tuesday, you were Renee Zellweger. I mean, there's a list of people. That's where you would go. It's like, what's to do in Austin? Oh, you got to go to see the Scabs at Antone's on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Wow, man.
And as fun as all that time was, and it was fun, and it was great, and Austin was cool, like different back then than it is now. I like my life so much better now than I did back then. Now, do I wish I was in that 32-year-old body of mine back now? Yeah, for sure. because I'm in my late 30s now. Like late. Like the postman has died. It's weird. I don't miss it. I like my life now more. So I don't know if that's progress or what, but I do less. I think that maybe, hopefully, I think a success for me in life is like, as you get older, you just do less and less of the things you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just hardly ever do anything I don't want to do anymore.
You've been listening to the Lone Star Plate podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. For more info, go to lonestarplate.show.